find out which of you did it.
What do you mean, which of you did it?
Well, I didn't do it. Well, one of us did. We all had the opportunity. We all had a motive.
Great. We'll all go to the chair.
Maybe it wasn't one of us. Well, who else could it have been? Who else is in the house? Only the cook. The cook!
All of those characters are searching for a murderer in Clue, the comic mystery with 3 endings. We'll tell you whether any one of them is worth seeing on At the Movies, the movie review program. I'm Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times. And let's also talk about whether the beginning of Clue is worth seeing.
Well, let's go all the way. Let's talk about the middle.
Let's talk about the middle, too. In addition to Clue, we'll also be reviewing Ran, a movie by the great Japanese director Akira Kurosawa. It's inspired by King Lear. And we'll look at an unusual fantasy named Dreamchild about Alice in Wonderland. But first, Gene starts with a wonderful little surprise named The Trip to Bountiful.
You call it wonderful? Says you. And says me. It's hard to describe the pleasure that a critic gets when you walk into a theater, sit down with no foreknowledge about the film you're about to see other than its title, and it turns out to be a winner. That's one of the most subtle and sustaining pleasures of moviegoing for critics and I think for the public too. And that's the experience I had with a sweet, superbly acted film called The Trip to Bountiful, based on a Horton Foote story. He also wrote Tender Mercies, the film that Robert Duvall won his Oscar for. The Trip to Bountiful is a small-town Texas period piece opening with a household where a meek husband and his enfeebled mother are both terrorized by his strong-willed wife. She's a terror, but her character is not overwritten or overplayed. And also pay particular attention to the mother in this scene, played by Geraldine Page, giving another extraordinary performance.
How many times have I asked her never to look into my dresser drawers?
I thought you wanted me to find the rest.
I do not want you to go into my dresser drawers. I'd like a little privacy if you don't mind.
Yes, ma'am.
And don't you ever let me catch you looking in them again for anything. I can't stand people snooping in my dresser drawers.
All right. Next time you just try to just...
You pick that recipe up, if you please.
Pick it up yourself. I have no intention of picking that up.
You pick that up. I won't.
Mama.
You will.
Jesse May, for God's sake, you're both acting like children. It's 1:30 in the morning.
You make her pick that up. I won't. I won't. You will. This is my house, and you'll do exactly as you're told.
That's Carlin Glynn, so good as Jessie May. Eventually, the mother tries to escape her confining home life, taking a bus back to her hometown called Bountiful. Along the way, she meets a lonely wife, played by Rebecca De Mornay.
Yes, the Lord's just with me today. Oh. Wonder why the Lord's not with us every day. Sure would be nice if he was. Well, maybe then we wouldn't appreciate it so much on those days when he is with us. Or maybe he's with us always, so we just don't know it. And maybe I had to wait 20 years cooped up in the city before I could appreciate getting back here. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. Heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of his spirit, washed in his blood. Ah, nice to be able to sing a hymn when you want to.
That's a sweet scene. You know, American movies are so full of car crashes and train wrecks and spaceships. It's lovely to have a movie take the time to have somebody sing a hymn. And that's quite a departure, too, for Rebecca De Mornay. So sexy and risky business in The Slugger's Wife. She's going off in another direction, and that's exciting. As for Geraldine Page, she's a marvel. If she had overdone her part, she would have given us just another doddering old lady we're supposed to feel sorry for, and the movie wouldn't have meant anything. Instead, Page fills her character, as she so often has, with a core of steel. That's not a doddering old lady. That's a smart, tough old lady. And that makes her worth watching. And that makes her journey to Bountiful, or to her own version of Heaven on Earth, a journey worth taking. This is a fine film about everyday people, the very people that American movies so often ignore.
I agree with you, Gene, and I think you're so right about Geraldine Page. The key mistake she would have made would have been to make the character somebody we're supposed to pity. We do not pity her. She is strong, she is determined, she's a little bit hard to get along with herself, in addition to her daughter-in-law.
But clever.
But clever, and she gets her way. Another interesting performance in the movie was John Hurd as that henpecked husband, because he so often in the movies has been a real aggressive, out in front kind of guy, and this time being laid back, being dominated like that. It's a very interesting performance there, too. It's hard to pull these performances off, and they all seem to be able to coordinate what they're doing so that it all works.
Now, let me just give an overview of the whole film.
Okay.
This reminds me of Tender Mercies. Horton Foote is the common denominator. And what his films are concerned with, again, I repeat, so in contrast to what's being done in American movies. They're about kind people. You know how short supply kindness is in American movies, that you see it at all? Cleverness, but not kindness, and people with a spiritual quality to them. And that's fresh and exciting.
The other thing I like about this movie and Tender Mercies, these are short stories. These are not high-tech movies where you take all of the machine parts off the shelf and plug them in. These are like short stories in that you introduce the characters and then things happen to them, and there's no way sitting there that you can be sure what's going to happen. You never know.
That's right.
Next at the movies, an old Japanese warlord tries to give away his title and yet still retain his power.
There's a nice hot way to spice up your day. Mexican Velveeta is here.
Make your enchiladas a little bit hotter.
With the peppery cheese blend of the year. Mexican Velveeta processed cheese spreads just right for giving a nacho a real macho bite. With Mexican Velveeta, you'll say, for peppers and cheese specially blended to please. There's no single cheese, hot or mild, like Mexican Velveeta.
Do you know what this is? It's silica, the major component of sand and most scouring powders. It's harsh and scratchy. That's why you should clean with Creamy Liquid Soft Scrub. It's a liquid cleanser with milder abrasives. It cleans tough messes like a scouring powder, but doesn't scratch like one. And Soft Scrub doesn't feel gritty. So think about it. Scratchy scouring powder or Creamy Liquid Soft Scrub. Soft Scrub. It cleans like a scouring powder without the scratchy sand.
Come on, everyone, it's time. Hello, I'm Orville Redenbacher. This is my favorite time of the year, when we Redenbachers get together to share the best of the season. Of course, we pop up plenty of my light and fluffy gourmet popping corn and my gourmet microwave popping corn.
Ready?
You'll say they're the season's best, or I'm not.
Redenbacher.
Great grandpa to you. May your holiday be the best there is.
We're Beatrice.
He's next, David. Very nice. He's next, evening wear. Very nice.
Having no choice is no fun. That's why at Wendy's, every hamburger isn't dressed the same. Choose fresh tomatoes, fresh lettuce, fresh onions, cheese, bacon, and more. Choose fresh. Choose Wendy's.
He's next, swimwear.
Our next movie represents the triumphant peak of the long career of Akira Kurosawa, the 75-year-old Japanese director whose credits read like a list of the world's great films. He made The Seven Samurai, Rashomon, Yojimbo, Akiru, and now, after a 10-year battle to find the backing, he has made his greatest epic ever and one of his very best films. It's called Ran. That's the Japanese word for chaos or turmoil, and it tells the story of an old king who wants to retire. He wants to divide his kingdom among his 3 children, yet still retain all the outward trappings of power. Well, of course, this is the story of King Lear, but it's also the story, we learn, of a legendary feudal Japanese warlord, and in combining those 2 stories, Kurosawa has made a great movie about pride and power and heartbreak. In this scene, his hero, the old king, contemplates suicide as his plans collapse around him. The warlord's second oldest son fights with his brothers, and in this scene is confronted by a sister-in-law who accuses him of murder.
この一の城は父の城。そこを追われるのは嫌じゃ。次郎殿、この願いを聞いてくださるならこの楓何も申しませぬ。悪逆非道については誰にも申しませぬ。卑怯未練な言葉も口にはいたしませぬ。これを話せばこの国は乱れに乱れまするぞ。いえ、この楓がこのようにしてみせまする。いかがじゃ、次郎殿。
You can see some of the parallels there with King Lear, the children trying to take over from their father and forget him, the in-laws all jockeying for position, sexual intrigue, palace intrigue. But this is not by any means a remake of Shakespeare any more than Kurosawa's Throne of Blood was simply a Japanese version of Macbeth. He finds the same themes running through Shakespeare and through Japanese medieval legend, and he transforms them into a great epic of pride and greed and lust and self-realization. Ran is a fabulous movie to look at. The battle scenes have an amazing force to them, and it's a remarkable statement made by an old man about an old man who discovers that it is never too late to learn humility and forgiveness.
Well, I think you make a very good point at the end, because one of the great things that Kurosawa does, and we could talk for the rest of the show about his career and about this movie, in fact, is that he continues to reevaluate his life and the way he has seen Japanese culture as he makes his movies. Kagemusha had him reflect on the samurai and the samurai warrior and maybe change some of his thinking. This film, again, talks about someone at the end of a life looking back and thinking about what they might have done. Look at the images. I just want to go to the images. There was a first cut, I don't know if you remember it, right at the beginning, they just showed the great warlord, just for like a brief second, the arrow shooting across him in this and he leaves it just for a second, and it startles us and commands us, conveys all the information. What a director to know that just that 1 second could do it. Then the woman ripping the sheets. I don't know, I mean, this is thrilling. I don't know if my skin's alive right now as I'm talking about it, and that's what he does with his movies.
And that's what he does in shot after shot after shot. I think it's fascinating, Gene, that we know that Kurosawa is almost blind, and he has been for 10 years, so that these images are images that he draws first on paper. He did thousands of cartoons and drawings for this movie because he could see that. And then he talks with the cinematographer and he tells him what he wants, and then he's able to see more or less what he's doing. And the images, because it's harder for him to see, he comes up with images that are impossible for us to forget.
That's real nice. I want to say that when I see a lot of movies about palaces and kings and all this kind of stuff, I never believe it. This stuff I thought was real. Coming up next, a classic board game becomes a movie.
Well, she's not here.
Well, Mr. Editor, how do you rate it?
On a scale of 1 to 10? A 20. Now, about your next assignment.
Oh, I'll pour the coffee.
Just half cup.
You? You love fresh brewed coffee.
Yeah, but the caffeine.
Harry, it's brim decaffeinated coffee. So how do you rate it?
If it tastes this rich, fill it to the rim.
With brim.
Fill your cup to the rim with the rich taste of Brim. Also available in hearty dark roast.
This is it. Our once-a-year-end clearance spectacular. More than 100 cars at all 6 locations. Honda, Ford, Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge, Volvo, Chevrolet, Pontiac, AMC, Jeep, Renault, and Oldsmobile. 12 car lines at super year-end savings. Possible 1985 depreciation or tax deduction if you purchase or lease for business. But do it this week. Our year-end clearance ends December 31st. Stop in at one of our 6 dealers now.
Easy pickings. Easy pickings. Easy pickings. Easy pickings.
Our next film is based on the 40-year-old board game Clue, and it starts out in a very funny way with a whole bunch of characters assembling in a mansion, all have familiar names, Miss Scarlet, Mrs. White, Colonel Mustard, all taken from the board game. And they all share the same secret. They're all being blackmailed by the same man.
I, too, am being blackmailed for something I didn't do.
Me too. And me.
Not me.
You're not being blackmailed?
Oh, I'm being blackmailed, all right. But I did what I'm being blackmailed for.
What did you do?
Well, to be perfectly frank, I run a specialized hotel and a telephone service which provide gentlemen with the company of a young lady for a short while.
Oh, yeah? What's the phone number?
So how did you know Colonel Mustard works in Washington? Is he one of your clients?
Certainly not.
I was asking Miss Scarlet.
Well, you tell him it's not true.
It's not true.
Is that true?
No, it's not true.
Ha-ha, so it is true.
A double negative. Double negative? You mean you have photographs?
That sounds like a confession to me. In fact, the double negative has led to proof positive. I'm afraid you gave yourself away.
Are you trying to make me look stupid in front of the other guests?
Don't need any help from me, sir.
That's right.
Now, as long as the talented cast is cracking one-liners, Clue is kind of fun, but the verbal gags last for less than half the film.
Why is that funny? I see. That's why he was lying on his back in his coffin. I didn't kill him.
Then why are you paying the blackmailer?
I don't want a scandal, do I? We had had a very humiliating public confrontation. He was deranged. He was lunatic. He didn't actually seem to like me very much. He had threatened to kill me in public. Why would he want to kill you in public?
I think she meant he threatened in public to kill her.
Oh. Was that his final word on the matter? Being killed is pretty final, wouldn't you say?
And yet he was the one who died, not you, Mrs. White, not you.
What did he do for a living?
He was a scientist. Nuclear physics.
What was he like?
He was always a rather stupidly optimistic man. I mean, I'm afraid it came as a great shock to him when he died, but he was found dead at home. His head had been cut off, and so had his, you know. I had been out all evening at the movies.
Do you miss him?
Well, it's a matter of life after death. Now that he's dead, I have a life.
There's some pretty funny gags there, and that one about the crossing of the legs. That is a classic. Now, after those gags early in the film, there's a murder. And that's where the movie falls apart, as all the characters begin running around the mansion as if they were mice in a maze. And then there's the matter of the film's ending. It has been well advertised by Paramount Pictures that 3 different endings, lasting about 3 minutes apiece, were filmed for this movie, revealing 3 different murderers. Well, think about it. If we know that walking into the movie, then we really can't get too excited about guessing who done it, because, think about it, literally anybody could have done it, and anybody did do it. 3 different people did do it. And that cuts the heart out of the tension of a mystery. Now, either Paramount should have showed all 3 endings, as they did to critics, or, better yet, simply strengthen the script and pick the best murder ending of all.
I think it would have been better just to do all 3 endings, because since you're right, it doesn't matter who did it, then why do we only get one person who did it? I thought it was kind of clever that the same facts fit 3 different guilty parties, and so it would be fun to see all 3. I'll bet that's what they do with a video cassette. They're going to have to throw all 3 endings in. What are you going to do, buy 3 cassettes?
No.
In order to find out, when he didn't care in the first place, who did it?
I will say this. I've seen all 3 endings. The critics got to do that. The public didn't. And the theaters are marked A, B, and C where they're playing. Now, Paramount doesn't want me to do this, but...
Okay, so let's both of us...
do it at once.
Okay.
The best ending, I think the funniest ending is A.
I agree.
What's the best? So go to a theater if you go at all, and I don't know whether you should go at all, and an A theater. Stay away from the worst, which is... C.
Right.
Hey, you're smart.
To make it even easier, probably be best if you didn't go to this movie at all. Next at the movies, the story of what happened to Alice after she left Wonderland and grew up in the real world.
So you think you've changed, do you?
I'm afraid I am changed, sir. I can't remember things.
And is a real nice surprise. Despite the title, Dreamchild is not a dreamy movie or a children's movie, but a sharp-edged, intelligent film about an 80-year-old woman who 70 years ago was told the story of Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll himself. In fact, she was the inspiration for the book. But being the original Alice has not been a good experience for this old woman, who is still troubled by nightmares and visions inspired by her sometimes frightening encounters with Lewis Carroll. In this scene, the old woman, played by Coral Brown, has arrived in New York to be honored as the original Alice. This is about 40 years ago, and her young traveling companion has met a brash young American newspaperman.
Wow.
I beg your pardon.
Did you say you were almost 80?
Are you attempting to suggest that in some way I look younger?
Am I attempting it? No, there's no need to attempt anything because you don't look a day over. No, I won't say because you won't believe me. Ma'am, you look terrific.
What a fraudulent young man you are. Oh, lovely.
That's it. When you clapped your hands like that, I could see right back across the years. I could see why this Lewis Carroll fella, or whatever his real name was, fell head over heels and... What did he call you?
Oh,
a dream child.
Think I... Oh, dear.
Mrs. Hargreaves.
Lucy.
Those two young people are going to fall in love, and the old woman will have trouble accepting it, maybe because of her own troubling girlhood experiences with the clergyman who wrote Alice in Wonderland. This is a flashback.
Oh, Mama, don't talk about going home yet. Don't say don't.
Yeah, me, no. We haven't had our tea and cakes yet. Very nice cakes, too. Though I do think we ought to find a nice hayrick with some shade soon. Very soon.
At once. How dare you? What a terrible thing to do.
But he was looking at me. A cat can look at a queen, you know.
Looking at you, Alice? Really, I don't know what you mean. Be quiet, Edith. Say you're sorry at once.
No, it doesn't matter.
That timid little man in the white straw hat is Ian Holm, playing the Reverend Charles Dodson, who wrote under the name of Lewis Carroll. And what Dreamchild suggests ever so subtly is that he was a disturbed man whose obsessive fantasies about young Alice were the real inspiration for Alice in Wonderland. He wrote a great children's book, but he left behind a very disturbed little girl who has to wait until she's 80 years old to free herself from the grip of his obsessions. Dreamchild is an intelligent and thoughtful movie, and a good-looking one, too, as it places this old lady right square in the middle of the rough-and-tumble world of New York newspaper wars.
Well, it's an adventure film about what's going to happen to this old lady.
Yeah.
It tells one story very well, and it also has us absolutely riveted now in rethinking Alice in Wonderland and the terrors that are on there in that book and the joys of it. It made me, the test for me, always of a book, either about a writer or based on a book, is whether I want to read the writer's writings or read the book. And you know what I plan to do real soon?
Go back and read Alice in Wonderland.
I have to, after seeing
Probably
this
the
film.
most poignant scene and also the most troubling scene in the whole movie is when he writes the book. It's inspired by her, and he gives her the first copy.
I know.
And she doesn't have time to read it. She wants to go out and play with her friends. And he's saying, but I wrote this book about you. And she's worried about her friends. She can hear their voices coming in through the window. It captures everything.
This is one of the most unusual films. I would like to also, there's other thing I'd like to do. I'd like to know why the director directed this film, because it really comes from, I don't know of anything to compare it with, actually. Remarkable little film. Now let's recap our reactions to the movies on this show. Both Roger and I greatly admire The Trip to Bountiful, featuring an Oscar-caliber performance by Geraldine Page. 2 thumbs up. We also are in agreement that Akira Kurosawa's Ran is one of the great films of this or any other year. And we agree that Clue needed 3 better middles rather than 3 different endings. 2 thumbs down for that. And gee, can't we disagree about anything? 2 thumbs up for the strange but special Dreamchild.
So you have 3 movies, Ran, a great movie for any season. Then we have 2 real nice discoveries, Trip to Bountiful and Dreamchild, at this Christmas time.
I would not miss Ran, and I would not wait for Ran to come out on video cassette. Ran is the kind of movie that is made for big screen and sit close to the screen.
Okay.
If it's a small screen.
Shall we have you come around everybody's theater and mark out seats that would be appropriate?
For Ran, yes.
Good, okay. That's it for this week. Next week, our annual review of the best movies of 1985. As Gene and I will both have our own lists of the year's 10 best, and we'll also remember some of the great moments in a year of movie-going. That's next week, and until then, we'll see you at the movies.
Tatiana, created for a woman to love and a man to remember. Parfum Tatiana by Diane von Bursten.
Our next film is called Revolution.